Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last panel of the day. We'll be talking about everything NFT related, so hopefully make it interesting before everyone heads to our evening full of drinks. So I am very honored to be your moderator today. My name is Annabelle Huang. I'm a partner at Amber Group, and I'm very honored to be joined by my stellar fellow panelists today. So maybe we'll start off with a brief self-introduction. I'll start first. Again, my name is Annabelle, partner at Amber. Amber Group is an integrated crypto finance platform where people can buy and sell crypto, earn yield, spend crypto, etc. We're a team of almost 500 people globally, servicing both institutional and retail clients across the globe. And we've recently launched a Creator Finance initiative where we're delving into the NFT space as well. With that, I'll turn it to Kathleen.
Great. Hi, my name's Kathleen Breitman. I'm the co-founder of the Tezos blockchain, which is a smart contract platform.
I'm Elias Simos. I work as a protocol specialist at Coinbase. And what I do is basically look at all the layer one space and whatever connects them and try and become the source of context for the company and our teams, all our partners, and so on.
Kyle Rojas, military originally, Goldman Sachs for a little under 7 years, and I'm head of BD and partnerships at Edge and Node, which is one of the core devs supporting the graph. And we're decentralizing the data indexing and the query services. So what Google did for Web 2, we're doing for all public on-chain data for Web 3.
Yeah, I'm Martin from Gnosis. And Gnosis is kind of an Ethereum native team, I would say. So just a few weeks after Ethereum launched, we had first DEP live. And since then, built all kinds of things. Maybe one of the most prominent is Gnosis Safe, a wallet to store funds with teams or individuals with higher security, currently storing over 80 billion worth of assets.
Great, thanks guys. So before we get to the serious topics, I want to open up with a bit of a personal question, since NFT has been big this year and maybe a little before. What are your favorite NFT collectibles, collections, and any interesting stories you can share with the audience?
Sure, I'll go first. So after the Tezos network launched in 2018, I founded another company called Kos. Kos basically focuses on digital collectibles in one form or another. And one of its first projects is a tradable card game called Emergence, which is based on a universe that one of our co-founders created with a bunch of DC and Marvel OGs. And that's coming to the fore at the moment, both through a tradable collectible card game, but also an associated comic book series, which is launching as NFTs. And what's really cool about this is that we partially use people who own the comic book to direct the storylines and thus, kind of the arc of the game itself. So it's a bit community-led, but it's also in collaboration with a lot of very professional artists and comic book illustrators and I guess writers. And I think the professionalism is really speaks for itself. So I recommend that you check it out, Emergence CCG. Thanks.
Super. Yeah, I love the stuff that Artifact does, which is basically Supreme for the Metaverse type brand. And I like sneakers, so they do a bunch of stuff of digital sneakers, NFTs, and then you forge them and you have shoes, and they have like a really interesting roadmap. But I guess it's probably my favorite type of NFT, or NFT in general, is obviously CryptoPunks. And I have this amazing story of how I missed CryptoPunks like 5 times. So I was at a one-day conference at Christie's in the summer of 2018, and Matt and John from Larva Labs were presenting their project there, and I saw it, and I'm like, fuck, this is cool. Because, you know what CryptoPunks are, right? 10,000 8-bit characters, all different, like, edgy, simple enough to understand, so like very unique at the time. So, we were very excited, and then talked about like how we could. I was working at a fund at the time, and talk about how we could get like a bunch of punks and hold on to them and so on. Never bought, right? And then went on a whole story arc where I made scarves with punks on them. I made mugs with punks on them. I made um, uh, custom punks in our team's likeness as a Christmas gift, right? And printed them on chain. Like, these things exist. Like, my shame is somewhere in the Ethereum blockchain in token form. And, you know, I never ended up buying any. So I guess if you're to take anything from that story is that if you find something and connect with it and you have like some sort of passion that you develop, just ape in, you know? Don't think about it too much.
I'm surprised it's still your favorite. That's impressive. I definitely participate in the NFT space, but I won't say anything about it because I truly get a ton of value in participating in the ecosystem as some totally anonymous degen. So I will say that I'm super excited about the collectible aspect of it because I was a nerdy collector growing up. I'm super excited about the gamification and excited to one day kind of live in the metaverse, kind of Ready Player One style. I don't know how far out that is, but I think it's an eventuality, and I don't know how it's going to get there. But also with NFTs, I see the real-world applications of real-world assets and services, which I also think is kind of inevitable, and NFTs are going to play a huge part of that. So that's very exciting to me.
Yeah, I very much like if NFTs are somewhat connected to social causes, actually. We haven't seen it too much yet. I think the best example I can come up is maybe the Snowden NFT, where it was connected to a donation to Freedom of Press Foundation or something like that. But to me, that is kind of makes very much sense because, well, of course, NFTs are to some extent about, well, status or kind of symbolizing your, well, that you want to belong to something, that you want to belong to a group, and obviously, well, symbolizing that, well, you want to support this cause, yeah, fits very well, and obviously has nice positive side effects of making some form of donations more attractive.
All right, great. Thanks, guys. So let's get to the serious topic today of a decentralized creator economy. But I think first I want to talk about what is a creator economy. So I want to ask the fellow panelists, in your mind, what is a creator economy and who are the key players in it? Maybe Kathleen again.
Sure. Yeah, I'll come up with a very vague definition that you guys can all beat up as we go down the line. I think that seems fair. So, I mean, it's hard to put a pin on it, right? Basically, people have been contributing a lot to the web, but they haven't been able to monetize their contributions very effectively. And I think when we talk about the creator economy in the context of Web 3.0, what we're talking about is basically a way for people to monetize their time and creativity in a more effective way. Whether that's the act of collecting, whether that's the act of creating, it's basically a way to make the web, I guess, a bit more evenly distributed in its ability to be monetized.
Yeah, and you have to think also like who are the creators, right? Like at least when I think about creators, like immediately my reptile brain says artist or something like that. But it's actually, if you scope it out a little bit, it's also coders, right? Like coding is a creative art to some extent, like especially when you're building something anew. So it's got a pretty broad scope, and as far as the sort of entities involved within the creator economy, it's of course the creators, right? The writers, the musicians, the artists, the video artists, and so on. The platforms that they issue their works on are also like a very big part of that economy. And then another, and I think Martin has some really interesting experience and thoughts with that, is the other piece is the distribution, right? How does this creative work get to the hands of millions of people? And the boundaries between the issuance platform and the distribution platform might blur, but I still think that they're quite distinctly separated, right? If you think about, the Apple Store and your phone as a distribution platform, there's a very clear separation there.
Yeah, I'd agree with both of you, and I would extend it to say that it's not just coders, it's not just owners, it's every time we click on something, every time we look at something, every time we move, a data point is made and someone makes money off of that. So like in Web 1, companies created content and they made money off it. Web 2, we created content and companies made money off it. In Web 3, it's this coming to fruition of We create content, and we own it, and we control it, and we monetize it if we want. And I think that's a very important distinction. That's really, really cool. That's coming to its manifestation.
Yeah, very. What we see with the safe, and I have to be honest, when we started to build that, we definitely didn't thought of that use case, but seeing small groups of people, and well, often they use the word DAO, and DAO is of course a very fuzzy term, and well, it's not clearly defined, but essentially groups that together create something, and also, well, potentially as a group, then own something. So I think NFTs are inherently social, and and kind of this concept of groups together. Yeah, I mean, there was this Pleaser DAO obviously, and this concept, to own stuff together. Seems to be big on the creator economy, I guess.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it is, like everyone said, right? It is the creators being the artists or content creators themselves. It is the consumers, or us, whoever click on the content or view the content. It's the platforms, and eventually it might be groups, organizations, DAOs. And it's funny because when we're sort of preparing for the panel, and then Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp went out for 6 hours, and I think that definitely influenced or affected a lot of the creators and consumers on that side, and that definitely made the case for Web3 and more decentralized systems. And we've touched base a little bit on the benefits of having a decentralized system, helping the creators and consumers monetize and have self-ownership. With that, I wanted to ask you guys, how are you, yourself, or your firm is building upon a decentralized creator economy? And I'm just curious, who are the creators you see right now?
Should we start from Martin?
Start on your end.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I can maybe just repeat the previous idea that those groups form, and it's almost hard to tell kind of often who or how within a group stuff is created. Obviously, there's a lot of like sharing, building on top of ideas. So yeah, I really see kind of those small collectives, small groups as a key part, I guess, in the creator economy.
And you asked what we're building and how we're building. So it's back to what I originally said. We're decentralizing data indexing and query services. Right now it's 24 EVM networks. With just that, 1.3 billion queries a day. We've announced we're building out to near Solana and Polkadot soon. And just imagine we want all public on-chain data to be decentralized and accessible in a permissionless way. And you think of who the creators are there. Every time I go to any dApp and I click, or I make a selection, or I buy something or sell something, I am creating. And those are the creators that eventually accumulate to massive amounts of data across the world. And then eventually, when Web3 kind of eats the world's data, every aspect, every data point will be on-chain, I think, eventually. It might take decades. It might take, hopefully, in our lifetime. And then everyone will be a creator, and we're just going to need a really good Web3 stack to track that.
Yeah, we don't build stuff on top of the creator economy. We rather build stuff under the creator economy. So what we do as a company, I work with the Bison Trails team, which is basically an infrastructure provider, and what that means is that we run nodes, right? We run validator nodes, read-write nodes, and so on, which is effectively like the lifeblood of this decentralized creative economy, right? Without those blockchains running and being able to read and write data from them, and also provide security by staking your tokens or otherwise, you're not able to have these platforms where all this creation and economic activity and new economic primitives that creators can employ and experiment with they don't exist, right? So we are basically putting our best foot forward in supporting any and all blockchains that we can and that we matter, including Tezos, among others. We are very excited to be doing what we're doing, especially when we're seeing so much activity start to blossom, like, beyond Ethereum. Kathleen, I'm sure, will have great stories to tell you about, all the NFT activity on Tezos. There's like almost a shadow community from my feed on Twitter, at least. Like, I have a separate list where I track like all the Tezos activity, and I'm like, why does that stuff never appear on like my main feed? But it's like truly mind-blowing how this community has like taken a life of its own, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think there's a few things in your question, Annabelle. First and foremost, I think the outage of Facebook and Instagram, like it goes to show that like, yeah, we're all very much relying on one company, and centralization is a risk. But I also think that there's a huge attraction to centralization that we just natively have, which is how we forget these things so easily. I've never been terribly compelled by the argument that all social media should be like Web 3.0, decentralized, whatever, because I think there's actually a very legitimate, attraction to centralization for these systems. What I find a little bit more interesting is sort of the NFT marketplaces that have sprung up on Tezos, the most prominent being Hic is a great use case or a great example of where I think the web could go tomorrow in social spaces. So Hic is an NFT marketplace on Tezos. It was built at a hackathon by like a 20-something-year-old in Brazil, and it just sort of was scaffolding. And a lot of the people who came to it in, I would say, February or March of this year were actually AI and generative artists who themselves actually know how to program. And so it was sort of a community self-organization to kind of take this scaffolding and almost homestead in a digital sense on Hic. And, in terms of daily active users and in terms of passion and I guess, contributions to the number of smart contract calls on the Tezos blockchain, it's been a tour de force, much more so than anything that's been venture funded or kind of artificially kind of synthesized to be the next big thing. Hic is truly something that's entirely grassroots. The people who contribute to it are also able to build the tooling and infrastructure for it. And I think that's really the path that we should be looking forward, is not just people who crave centralization for the convenience of it, but people who crave decentralization, right, for the amount of free expression that it lets you harness. So Hic is my favorite, case study, and conveniently, it's also on the Tezos blockchain, which I'm, as you might imagine, quite fond of.
And just, I guess, a follow-up. Oh, please
maybe
go ahead.
just one more comment of what we are building. It's wallets, and just to make the connection. That we call it suddenly the creator economy. The new thing is not, and Kathleen, you said it earlier, that people are creating. I mean, obviously, on Facebook, people used to create, on blogs, on TikTok, people create, on whatever. People create or are creating since Web 2. They are creating for a long time. So why we suddenly call it the creator economy, and I guess, that's not what we meant, basically. So why we call it now the creator economy is because, now, ideally you own those that created actually own it.
You share in the economics.
Right. And there we need to talk about wallets. So how do you actually, are you actually owning it? Are you actually, not your keys, not your CryptoPunk, I guess. And in that context, and that's of course broader topic. We need to talk about decentralized identity, and currently I guess the best to that is a key, private public key pair. But we believe that's not what eventually will succeed. We believe we need smarter wallets, and I mean that's also a topic that has been discussed for a while, kind of smart contract wallets, and that's what we built. So contracts, or in a way, an identity or something, a wallet that can have smarter rules of how you own the stuff, under what conditions you can move things, key recovery, social recovery, kind of all those things. But essentially, it's the very core of it. I mean, if you don't own it, then, we are back in...
Another way of putting it is that you're just shifting risk, right, from one centralized entity to like another infrastructure provider, and you're not necessarily solving the problem if you don't have like,
Absolutely not. We are giving control to the user.
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
would
Shifting ownership, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. There's a lot of use cases for centralized entities in TradFi and normal people in general that aren't comfortable in this space. So I don't think it's a winner-take-all scenario. I think there's over 7 billion people. There's going to be a lot more going forward. I think we're all going to find our niches, what we're comfortable with. And so I think we're all building something really cool that's going to apply to different parts of society.
There's an interesting thread in something Martin was mentioning before, which is we call it the creator economy because the power is moving to the creator, right? Because they have like this ownership and it's cryptographically secured and proven and so on. And like Gnosis is the safe is incredibly cool, right? Because you're empowering like creators to team up and also have like a treasury and be able to like not only they could team up in like a Web2 context, but now they can have like a permissionless communal bank account that they can co-sign, and then they can divert the funds into furthering their common goals, which is like squad wealth or whatever that's called. It's actually a pretty great piece of infrastructure to have and make available to creators for them to actually kind of use not only their creativity but capital to enhance with whatever they're doing.
But Kathleen, I think you're right. It does shift risk and responsibility as well. And that's a huge responsibility.
Yeah. Good thing we have people like Martin making rules, right?
But yeah, actually, I think the shift from Web 2.0 to 3.0, it takes the brave ones to try out first and to accept the idea of self-custody, and that comes with a lot of benefits, but also at risk, right? I have a lot of clients who can't figure out how to use the ledger or panic because they thought they forgot the password and have to walk them through how you can recover. And it's not easy. The user experience hasn't been easy, but I think we are on this trend of making it better, and there are people who are building an infrastructure out there that's needed to make it happen.
What's I think really interesting is that is entirely true, but people are just like jumping over the fence, right, to get in and try it out. Creators in particular, like the NFT boom this year has happened not because of like the easy access, but despite of the difficulties in the tooling that's available and so on, which I think is a testament to how much power this technology gives to creators, right? Like there was like a super interesting anecdote. There's this platform called Catalog, which is, you can imagine as OpenSea for MP3s or waves or like music, effectively. And someone, I think yesterday or the day before, sold like a relatively small artist as well, right? Like not a huge following and so on. They sold one of their music pieces, one of their tracks, for as much as they would get from Spotify if they hit 3 million listens, which is, to me, completely mind-blowing.
Cool.
And if you try and like peel it back and see why, like if you go back to like your economics 101, I don't know like how many of you have been exposed to that kind of thing. But you're actually, like, as a creator, able to capture more of the demand curve, right? Like, you can sell at different points of the demand curve instead of having like someone just saying like, this is the point that you're going to sell, this is the vig I'm going to take. See ya, right? I'm the network effect, so if you want a career, if you don't, like, please be my guest, try someone else. So I think I'm super excited to see not only like how this stream develops, but like also what other ways there are available, like to fund creative work and monetize creative work.
I would add that like what's really nice about this is that it's inherently happy. So like the Web 2.0, like the ad model of the web just basically stokes a lot of outrage and kind of it strongly incentivizes that to happen, right? Because that's what gets people going and that's what gets them to click and that's what gets their eyeballs. What's been heartwarming about the NFT boom is that it's basically introducing a sense of play into the web that didn't exist, for the last 10 years or so, that things have become much more vitriolic and upsetting in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. This is inherently happy when you have an artist releasing things and you want to support them.
Entirely. Happy so far.
Yeah, this is a sort of an application that I think the mass gets. We've tried, I think we've spent the last 10 years trying to explain Bitcoin as a financial application on top of blockchain to people, and it's hard. I think people don't like numbers, but when it's blockchain games, blockchain content, or blockchain-based sort of a creator economy where they can play to earn or do all these fun things, and all of a sudden, right, people get it. And like Elias said, despite the hurdle of having to set up your wallet and all of that, people are jump into this. And I think that's what gets me, certainly, what's super excited about the space. And as a follow-up to my earlier question, I wanted to also talk about who are the creators in the decentralized world right now. And from those of you who are building platforms or NFT marketplaces, are these super crypto native people, or are we seeing influx of traditional musicians, content creators coming in as well?
It's a mix, I would say. There's obviously like, it's more crypto native people, but it has been up until the middle of this year, because that's everybody that was around, really. And then, you know, the platforms were mature enough, and I guess it was at the right moment in time, right? Where it felt like from, I guess, May or so, a lot of new people entered the space, like creators, right? And so you can whip up a 10K PFP project and, like, you know, issue it on OpenSea and so on. That's like definitely not the most interesting thing, but it's also kind of interesting because it's like a community. It's like you create a community out of nothing, right? And that's pretty special. But there's also like all kinds of interesting creators coming in, right? And so far, like at least as far as I understand, I don't know about you guys, it's more visual related, which is, I mean, the web is mostly visual, so that makes a ton of sense. But there's like a very interesting intersection in, you know, code and art, and, you know, the art blocks and the generative art that Kathleen was talking about before. I'm excited to see like more, right? I'm excited to see more video. I'm excited to see more 3D environments. There's like apparently an army of Unreal Engine engineers that are severely underpaid. Please come along.
Call us.
Yes. There's like musicians. I just talked to you about this example before. I'm like, you know, I collect records. It was one of my pastimes. I'd love to like collect digital NFT records, more of them, please. It's just like the scope is just massive, and I think what is really encouraging, to go back to Annabelle's question, is that we are seeing like completely new people enter that are not crypto natives, and they don't necessarily need to become, like, we are at this, like, we talk about how it's difficult to navigate the space and so on, but we also have to realize that we've come like a long way in the last, like, I don't know, three or 4 years, right?
I would, you know, I think about it this way. It used to be the case that the Model T was sold with a kit to basically fix it.
Right.
And you had to know how to fix your Model T. And I think crypto will have its moment when you just buy a Tesla and drive it off the lot, and it auto-updates the software for you, and you don't have to worry so much about it. But, you know, Doja Cat is posting NFTs on Tezos, and I can't think of anyone more mainstream right now than that. So, and then, you know, on the other side of it, we've got like people who basically, you know, have been in crypto for a really long time. We were seeing this as like, oh yes, I've been creating, you know, art on the side, and I never thought I'd have an opportunity to sell it online. Mm-hmm. That's great too. We welcome all types.
Snoop Dogg, did you see Snoop Dogg?
It's crazy.
You guys see Snoop Dogg? Snoop Dogg is like, has an alt on Twitter that is like basically an NFT specific, like, NFT collector type profile, right? And then they were like, I'm gonna do this big release from the alt, and then turns out it's Snoop Dogg. So, like,
there's quite a bit of that going on, I think, too. Like, people kind of testing their toe in the water to see like how much, you know, curation there is, and then you know, doing a big reveal, you know, Scooby-Doo style. But maybe not a good reference. But in any case, I think that's part of the coolness of this, is that you get to experiment with it and see like what sticks.
What do you think about the role of curation in the whole, like, creative space that we're talking about? Because you touched on it, right? Like, you know, Snoop Dogg is effectively a collector, is a curator, and so
Yeah.
on. So I'd love to hear like your thoughts and experience on.
I think value is subjective.
Right.
And I think that this is at the intersection of like, pure artistic interest, which is like, just the truest form of self-expression, and something a bit more, Web 2.0, which is like how do you actually like make money off the internet, right? Like, it's, yeah. So there's clearly like status symbols, and there's clearly people who don't care, and it's kind of fun to see where they collect and where they gather, because there's clearly stuff that's incentivized in certain marketplaces that aren't on others. And I think, in the next year or so, we're going to see different communities emerge, and that's what the self-organization of like crypto is kind of beautiful for.
But I'm definitely curious about how that curation might play out in practice, because I just saw kind of this preview, really exciting, that Twitter apparently is working on something where you can select an NFT as your profile. So you literally connect your wallet. Well, it will load the NFTs in it, and you can collect it. And apparently they then give it the check mark, so that they even verify that that is an NFT. Now, obviously, you can create an NFT. Well, anyone can create NFT, so you obviously could just copy a CryptoPunk and create an NFT. Yeah, well, it's a verified NFT. It's on the blockchain and so on. Well, obviously, it's not the right one. So who decides which the right one is? And that, well, there will definitely be some form of curation, or kind of, somehow expressing that this one is authentic and that one is not.
I think we're still so early, and what's cool is that we all probably have a different crypto pill a day or aha moment, and whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or other, the crypto winter building. Now a lot of people are going to say my crypto pill was NFTs, and they're going to come for the dopamine hit, and they're going to hopefully kind of stay for the revolution, just like a lot of people did. And I think that's super important. It's onboarding a lot of people and opening their minds, and they see the sense of community. And then maybe they peel back the onion and see how exciting it really is and the potential for it.
No, totally agree. And I think wanted to bring this conversation back to maybe a more realistic light, where obviously we still live in the Web 2.0 world mostly. And as you guys, or as us, as more of the leader in the space, trying to lead the crowd into Web 3.0, so to speak, what are the challenges that you have faced so far, the bottlenecks you've seen, maybe from the infrastructure level to whatever existing legacy system there is? So yeah, wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
I could start.
Yeah.
As kind of an institutional person, I was 12 years Air Force, almost 7 years Goldman, and I've always been financially and emotionally dependent on institutions, even though I've been participating in this economy for half a decade, and totally anonymously. But now I think that is a huge hesitation for people to kind of get rid of the dependency, the addiction, the essentially, I wouldn't say brainwashing, just the culture of that's how it is, and then being able to trust something new. And that's a big paradigm shift that took me even a long time, this long doing this on my own in this space, because I've lived that my whole life. So, and that's with me actually participating in the economics. So I can imagine somebody's just seeing this NFT that's worth $5 million, shutting the door on it and never trying to get into it. So that's a huge mental shift for people.
It's kind of great that the institutions are doing everything they can to push people that way, though.
Yeah.
That was kind of my entry into the space, was like really disillusionment with like a lot of the modern institutions that like
Totally.
hold society, and like Europe specifically together, right? Like there's a lot of disconnect, there's a lot of friction, and it felt at the moment, and it still feels like that we have a real opportunity here to just elevate people's wants and needs and front center, and like find ways to satisfy everybody. The pie can get bigger, and the pie can be shared a lot better if we just can coordinate. And so that's like, I think a huge part of the creator economy is also, and what we're working on, and the whole Web3 idea is coordination, right? And there's something really powerful in that.
Yeah, one of the benefits. I think there's a lot of them. It would take a while to go through them.
Yeah, but I mean, there are, of course, very, very concrete dependencies on Web2 platforms, and the most concrete, well, I can share, we can share, and, well, we are not the only one affected by that, is the Apple App Store. So we wanted to make a new release of our, well, mobile app of the Safe supporting NFTs, and it was not allowed by Apple. So that release was blocked. Because yeah, they want their. I mean, it's just their policy. I guess they want their 30% cut on digital items, or simply. I mean, even if we somehow would try to build in this 30%, well, it's not really possible. They simply just don't allow it. So Apple's policy currently is to not allow any wallets that allow to interact and buy and sell NFTs. Yeah, to kind of display NFTs. And I'm really curious how that will turn out. If at some point the pressure might be high enough, it's hard to tell. I mean, which was the company, the game that tried to fight? Yeah, right. They tried to fight, and I guess they lost. I mean, they
made a concession, but yeah, I mean, largely they lost a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a huge hit for them. Fortnite, yeah, exactly. So I think they're still not in the App Store, and I think they regretted their decision to try to fight against Apple.
Yeah, I think just I violently agree with Martin and the rest of the panelists, but I think also just people inherently crave, centralization, whether they like to admit it or not. And the only reason we, see striving for decentralization is largely when centralization fails. But if you don't kind of practice that, and you don't kind of set up a good environment for that to take hold, the default is basically trying to rely on centralized systems. So it's an uphill battle.
Yeah, on that mental shift, I think one of my most sort of contentious beliefs about what we're discussing and the whole Web3 idea is that not everybody is, and I think not everybody will be comfortable holding their own private keys, right, and custodying them. So there is a real comfort in centralized environments as well, and there is a space for that, and we can definitely improve in so many different ways, right? Centralized environments that enable this, but also kind of, give users the comfort of them not having to custody and be responsible for custodying their own assets, which sounds a bit silly if you think about it. You should, in a way, but also you don't have to, right?
There's
totally fair. Yeah, I agree.
There's something we said for verification, though, which we don't necessarily have today in standards.
No, entirely. And there's so what's a really interesting vision of the future, and I think we'll probably get to that in a bit, but for me there was a big revelation moment when I first sort of interacted with CryptoKitties back in 2018. So, you basically had your MetaMask wallet and then some NFTs in it, and then you went to the CryptoKitties site and you fired it up, and then suddenly it was a personalized experience, right? Because it was almost, you logged in with your MetaMask, and then what would render in the site was whatever was on your wallet. And I realized at that moment that oh, wait a second, I'm the only person in the world that is seeing this screen right here, and every other person that's visiting that site is seeing a different screen, which is an incredible vision if you think about it, that's enabled by blockchains, right? We can all be in the same environment, but we can all see slightly differently, right? I assume that we also perceive colors. I've never been someone else, so I don't know for sure. But we perceive colors slightly differently, in different tones than each other. But we can still coordinate and cooperate and have fun together. And I think it's a really exciting future.
Totally.
Yeah, I love that. And with that, I think wanted to ask you guys, what other things, what new things would you like to see in this space? Is it whether having what we just talked about, infrastructure that better connects Web 2 to Web 3, or is this something completely Web 3 native that's going to be able to onboard more people in this space, and also give people that level of comfort while socializing or doing financial transactions? What are your thoughts?
What would I like to see?
Yeah, what new things you'd like to see?
Yeah, I'm slightly triggered by Martin's comment before, because basically, I do think mobile is kind of the way that we engage with the world, and that's not going to stop. It's only going to accelerate. So the fact that a lot of mobile platforms are basically in one way or another throttled by Apple and Google in some form is quite difficult. And so, I have personal experience with trying to develop a mobile-first application using a blockchain. And to Martin's point, it is an uphill battle.
Yeah, I'd love to see more experimentation with economic models and creators like wallets and infrastructure and all that. Like, we definitely need that stuff. But selfishly, what I'd like to see is both more music, MP3s, and so on in the broader sort of NFT metaverse space, but definitely more experimentation with economic models, right? Like, how do you I don't know if you're tuned to that sort of thing, but for example, Balancer has which is an AMM, has a great innovation, the 98.2 pool, which is like a liquidity bootstrapping pool, right? That was like a real 0 to 1 in my eyes, at least, for like the DeFi space. So I think there's a lot more innovation that we can see in kind of like the NFT space and issuance, and then how creators actually kind of monetize their work and how they present them to the world, and how this kind of economic flavor of the work itself kind of actually describes the work, right? And defines the work. And I'm super interested to see how we can see more experimentation in that dance between the financial aspect and the creative aspect, and how the two become one and enhance like the sum of the parts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everyone. There's so many cool things that are happening right now. It's just exciting. I think I would like to see, even if not Web3 in its entirety, I'd love to see the principles of Web3 filtered in. So verifiability and transparency, which takes a lot of decision-making authority and autonomy control out of the top, and kind of allows us at the bottom to trust but verify. I'd love to see a realignment of incentives with distributed participation in everything from economics to governance, which will allow us as humans to kind of, as a hive mind, which I think is much more powerful in decision-making power than like wealthy people in a small room, to adapt, fail forward, and innovate faster, which is probably the best leading indicator for like the survivability of a species. And I'd love to see redundancies and robustness and reliability, which is a big thing in decentralization. And then I'd like to see really a very underestimated piece of the puzzle, but super important to me, is just everyone owning their own data and digital identities and doing what they want with it. And that's, in my opinion, a right, not a privilege. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people. So that's what I'd love to see.
Definitely building up on top of that, to me, that's really the key piece. And if we don't get that right, then it's, well, not clear to me whether it's worth it. That is, like, are you owning it? And I would say maybe you can. I definitely also see the role of centralized services, but essentially you could make the test: can you withdraw? So can you somehow get it out? In many platforms today, that's not really possible. So if I want to withdraw from Twitter, I guess I could copy my tweets somehow, somewhere, and kind of try to paste them somewhere. I don't know. That is, of course, still a large, somewhat unsolved challenge. The question of digital identity, and specifically digital identity across blockchains. I think for a single blockchain, we have solved that pretty well. I mean, it's your key, and maybe it's a smart contract, and it can do smarter things. But as soon as we hit borders of blockchains, then, well, it really almost doesn't work well at all. So the question is, where will people have their, whatever it is, wallet, key, identity, where will that live, and will that be that universal, that actually all the content or the data, the identities they have is truly connected to that digital identity?
Super cool. It's just an exciting time.
All of your answers. And I think with that, I want to close with one last question. And again, a bit on a personal side. I think Kyle touched upon the idea of metaverse in the very beginning of our discussion. And I want to ask my fellow panelists today, in the dream world where maybe all of these things that we just talked about become real, and what is your ideal or your dream metaverse look like?
Opt-in matrix style stuff, definitely. As in, I don't live in like a jar of fluid, but I can just like tap into that type of world whenever I want. And like as an interim step, we can I'd be super happy to have this. You own your own game items, and then the game items are interoperable, and you can take them from one environment to the other, interact with users, like truly own, right? Like I think ownership has been like an underlying thread in all of the stuff that we've been talking about. So first the game items, I think that will be kind of like a good leading indicator of we're on the right track, and then the matrix.
Quite the jump.
Yeah,
It's a tough question. You guys can go first. I think I need whiskey to answer this one.
talking about the Matrix, I am definitely fascinated also with VR, and well, I have my Oculus, and well, put it on my head, and then at some point I realized, okay, every pixel and everything I see here is controlled by Facebook essentially, and really literally some Facebook engineers and guys decided, well, what I see and kind of what I experience, and I completely give all my senses to their, I don't know, algorithms. So yeah, so that, I mean, I see the great potential of stuff like VR, but I really hope that we somehow keep an openness and keep systems open, that not just one company decides what content and what stuff we consume.
John Carmack's pretty cool, though.
What is?
I said John Carmack is pretty cool, despite the Facebook affiliation. But yeah, I think just things getting weird. Like I think the internet is at its best when it allows people who would have otherwise been very socially stranded to come together and make something odd and profound. Arguably, cryptocurrencies were first an expression of this, and I think that's really when this stuff is most fun, is when you find your very weird tribe that you would have never in a million years found because you were born in, I don't know, Southeast Asia and they were born in New York. And so that's kind of what gets me going about thinking about the web and the next iterations of it, is weirdos finding other weirdos, because that's where fun starts, right?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer it, because I think anything I would say with regards to Matrix or the Oasis, Ready Player One, or AR, VR would probably end up not where I'd want to be in the end, because I think we, along the lines, whether we're uploading our consciousness like in Black Mirror episode or something like that, I think we'd lose some shred of identity and humanity that we didn't have before, and we don't understand what those externalities or unintended consequences will be. So many things seem exciting, and I'll probably participate. I'll be the second or third to upload my consciousness as long as it works, and I really don't know what that's going to look like. But that's super exciting that we can even imagine that might even in a small way happen during our lifetime. So it keeps me up at night. I have no idea. Again, it'll take whiskey to really get it out of me.
What if you could fly?
Yeah, of course I'd have a jetpack. Come on.
Great. I think we probably just have 2 minutes left for maybe 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Yeah? Do you need a mic or... Project to the room.
Just yell it. Oh, we got one.
Hi, everyone. So quick question. So this creator economy is mainly kind of dictated by YouTubes of the world and Instagrams and Facebooks and all. With this new paradigm, how do you see them as threat to this new NFT economy, and especially the NFT creator economy? Because we might innovate a lot, and they might come at the end and might take over everything.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is open, kind of how those platforms will position themselves. One super interesting thing recently was, of course, TikTok, who announced to, I don't exactly know what they do, but it sounds like
300 million euros.
No, yeah. So my understanding is that TikTok creators can create their content directly as NFTs. All right.
Yeah. So how are the startups?
I think I'd like to answer that.
How the startups are going to compete? Like TikTok announced 300 million euros for next 3 years, I believe, for the creator economy.
So-
Same, I think Instagram, YouTube has also announced recently. So how do startups will compete?
I think it all comes down to incentives. And centralized entities who make a shit ton of money off of us and our data, their incentive is to make more money, to change the laws, to allow them to make more money and accumulate more power. And that, I think, is being disrupted by this little revolution. And it's good to be the disruptor. So I think they're a threat because they're the incumbent in the powerful scheme of things. And that's our job to get in, participate, and disrupt them. And eventually, I think they will capitulate. I really do.
I think we're actually running out of time, but maybe we can have a discussion later off stage. And again, thank you all here, and thank you to my fellow panelists today. Thank you.